Morning. Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's a fairly crisp winter's morning here in the South Burnett in a little gully, but we've only got 13 days left until the start of spring, which is awesome. It feels like winter's gone fairly quick, and I think a lot of the time it does, unless we have a fairly dry, wet season. That's when it really feels like winter starts to drag out, when it doesn't rain from February to September like it did last year. But it was a fairly warm autumn, and yeah, it feels like I've had a jumper on for probably 2 months of the year. And so I wanted to make a quick video because my management focus starts to change. It's starting to change. We got 45 mil on Monday last week, which is great. It's really starting to build that moisture profile coming into spring. But it makes me kind of start to turn my management focus from conservation mode, which you're in midsummer, autumn, when you're trying to accumulate feed, to growing season preparation mode. So how do we prepare for our growing season to grow as much quality forage as possible? And so my focus, I guess, because it is, where it's been 2 months, almost 2 months since the winter solstice, and which is the 20th of June in our southern hemisphere, and so the day lengths are getting longer, and because the day lengths are getting longer, the average daily temperatures are getting higher, and with those two factors, it makes our rainfall a lot more meaningful. So the rain that we do get, going forward, is going to be more effective, because there's three main factors that determine how fast a plant grows, and that is the moisture, so rain. It is the temperature, so whether it's a warm or cool season forage plant, and sunlight, so that photo period, day length. And so there's obviously soil. Soil's a big part of it, but if your plant's already established in the ground, then it's a good indication that it's conducive to growing that species. So as we look to prepare from a really high level view, why do graziers clip or burn their pastures? That's probably the main question. That's what I wanted to talk about, clipping or burning, in this video. So why most of us clip our pastures is because we have all of this mature grass, right? So the plants have a life cycle. They start young and green and tender and vegetative, and then as they mature throughout the year, they start to accumulate in fiber, and their capacity to photosynthesize and capture solar energy really decreases. So they're just sitting there stagnant. They're not doing anything, and they are not cycling carbon. They're not even high. They don't even have a very high nutritional value for the livestock. So we really want to get rid of it. And so what plants need is periodic pruning. We can do that with livestock, like we have here, but the issue that some people run into who are in the space of management intensive grazing, who really budget and set aside feed, is that we can get to the end of our non-growing season and still have a little bit of feed left over, right? Which is a good thing. You'd rather have too much than too little. And so we want to restart those plants, but we don't have enough livestock, right? And sometimes you don't even want to push your livestock to graze that really rank, mature grass, because for them to get any value out of it, you'll have to provide a bit of protein supplement for them to digest it. So if we don't have enough livestock, what else can we do? Well, we can prune it mechanically with a mulcher or a slasher, or we could burn it with prescribed burning or controlled burns. So that's a bit of what I wanted to talk about today, which is the two of those and the context or situations that they might be useful to you in, and how I go about thinking about these two practices. So starting with clipping, the obvious benefit is that we're returning all of that organic matter into our soil. So when a flail on the mulcher or a blade on the slasher cuts that mature grass, it falls down onto the soil surface, where it can start to decompose and contribute to the soil organic matter content of that soil. And as we know, the organic matter is what helps with soil structure and water retention and things like that. And the other benefit is that you get a really even grazing, not grazing, but you get an even pressure applied across the whole landscape. So a slasher doesn't discriminate against desirable and undesirable species like she does. So we get a nice, even mechanical prune, and that allows our desirable species to outcompete our non-desirables that get set back. So there's some of the benefits. The only downsides or the negatives of clipping is that you need the equipment. You got to invest in the equipment. You need the labor, diesel, and all of those other factors to operate it. And then it's not practical in some situations where it's too rocky or too steep, right? So then we also have burning. So the obvious benefit of burning is that it doesn't cost much. You need a drip torch and light it up. Make sure you've planned it out. You know what you're doing, and the fire does the work for you. Then the next benefit, which is also it's either a benefit or it is a it's detrimental. It's detrimental. So it is the fact that when grass combusts, it releases all of that carbon in the plant that could go onto the soil into the atmosphere, right? So we're not returning it. Some minerals like phosphorus and potassium stay on our soil surface and provide a kind of quick boost of nutrients, but we're not returning and cycling that carbon. But why I say that this could be beneficial is because for something to decompose, and actually let me take a step back. What I think is probably too much emphasis is placed on in the regen ag space is trampling and the amount of carbon that we put on our soil surface, so the thatch layer that we build up. Because for something to decompose, it needs a certain carbon to nitrogen ratio, and all the gardeners and composters will know about this, but it's just a natural principle that still applies to grazing, is that we can trample all of that organic matter onto the soil surface. We can build a really thick layer of litter of carbon, but there's no point doing that if we don't have the biology to digest it, because what happens is it's the bacteria and the microbes in the soil that do the decomposing, right? And to do it, they need a ratio of a certain ratio of carbon to nitrogen, and all of that litter above them on the soil surface is carbon. So where do they get all of the nitrogen? Well, whatever nitrogen is available in the soil, which they were previously giving to the plant to grow, they're now prioritizing it and allocating it towards decomposing our litter. So it's called nitrogen drawdown, or like nitrogen immobilization. So our plants start to stagnate because we're putting everything towards breaking down this litter, this material. So that's when I think it comes down to context. On heavy clay soils that are already high in organic matter, and you have an enormous amount of bulk feed there, then clipping that down or slashing it or trampling it might not even be your best option, right? You may be better off using fire so that we get rid of some of that carbon, and so that we have a more acceptable ratio of carbon to nitrogen, so that when we get to the growing season, your plants aren't limited by nitrogen, and that biology is focusing on that other job, which is decomposing. So that's when I think it comes down to context. I think on sandy soils, really low fertility sandy soils that are low in organic matter, I think clipping is always going to be the option if you can, returning that organic matter back into the soil. But I think there's definitely something to said, and I'll put some videos up or some photos of some of my paddocks where you can just have way too much carbon. Okay, so it depends how you use it. Fire, I was always told that it was bad, and that it promotes plants to drift further apart. But I think the opposite is actually true. That's what I've observed, and that's what I've heard from a lot of other experts in the place. Because what we're doing is, when we burn, we're exposing all of the growing points at the crown of the plant, on the base, on the soil surface, to sunlight, and so's that more growing points mean that we can tiller more, we can put more tillers out, and the plant spacing, the density, actually gets better. Plants come closer together. And it's probably another video to talk about, but the whole trampling, how much do you trample? Because when you trample a lot of material and old mature stalks and stems, you actually cover up a lot of those growing points, and so you've got a large portion of your land area that is not photosynthesizing. They're not leaves that are capturing and converting sunlight. So it's probably another topic, but that's where I think burning can fit in. I hope maybe that helped a little bit. I've got some paddocks that will be clipped. Definitely they aren't huge. They don't have a huge amount of biomass. They've already been grazed. A quick clip to really reset them at the start of spring is what I'll do. But then I have some sections, like the photo I put up, that I am going to do a burn on, and it'll be a good trial. Do an experiment between the two, and maybe show you guys some of the differences. But hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you later.